Hello, future engineers. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're still new to my channel and you like what I'm doing, please don't forget to share my videos to your friends and to your friends' friends, to your younger brothers and sisters who would want to take up engineering in the future, and to your relatives. That's one way you can keep me going, inspired, and refreshed. Now, if you find my videos interesting and important to your studies, also please don't forget to subscribe. Here is Calculus 1.8 on functions and higher level. Perform the indicated operations. Part A, if f of x is cosine of x, find f of o, f of pi over 2, f of pi, f of negative pi, f of quantity pi minus y. If g of y is cosine y minus sine y, find g of o, g of pi over 2, g of pi, and show that g of pi over 2 plus x equals g of quantity pi minus x, and it is also negative g of negative x. If part C, if h of x is tangent x, find h of pi over 2, h of quantity x minus pi over 2, h of negative x, and express h of 2x as a function of h of x. Now, for the viewers who would want to answer this by their own, then you can, but you have to pause the video and compare results afterwards if you are done. And for those who would want to just watch, then you just watch. And there are recommendations here, especially for expansions. You have to review uh, trigonometry, especially on sum and difference functions, as well as the negative relations. So I'll now begin with the solution. For part 1, we have f of o means cosine of 0, and cosine of 0 is 1. You should know that. The angle is 0 degrees, so cosine of 0 is 1. Even without a calculator, you should know that cosine of 0 is 1. Sine of 0 is 0. Tangent of 0 is 0. So you know also the reciprocal relations. So cosine of 0 or f of o is 1. F of pi over 2 is cosine of pi over 2, and cosine of pi over 2 or cosine of 90 degrees is 0. Then f of pi is in the here left, so cosine of pi is negative 1. So f of pi is negative 1. F of negative pi, so same angle but in clockwise direction, it will terminate at the same uh, angle, which is pi or negative pi. So it is also negative 1. F of negative pi is negative 1. So next is f of quantity pi minus y. We have this cosine of quantity pi minus y. You have to recall difference cosine of alpha minus beta, which is cosine alpha cosine beta plus sine alpha sine beta. That's the expansion. If you cannot recall, you should recall, because that's a basic trigonometry and this is already calculus. The reason why calculus is difficult for many, it's because they cannot bring along the principles, basic uh, formulas in trigonometry. So you should remember that. So cosine of quantity pi minus y is cosine pi cosine y plus sine pi sine y. And since cosine of pi is negative 1 from the above uh, experience, and sine of pi is 0, sine 180 is 0, so the second term is 0. The first term is negative 1 times cosine y, therefore f of quantity pi minus y is negative cosine y. Then we proceed to part B. G of 0 is cosine of 0 minus sine of 0. cosine of 0 is 1, while sine of 0 is 0, therefore it is 1. Next is g of pi over 2. G of pi over 2 is cosine of pi over 2 minus sine of pi over 2. And cosine of pi over 2 is 0, sine of pi over 2 is 1, so negative of 1 is negative 1. So g of pi over 2 is negative 1. Next is g of pi. G of pi is cosine of pi minus sine of pi. And sine of pi is 0. Cosine of pi is negative 1 in our experience here. Therefore, g of pi is negative 1. Then let us show that all these three function value g of pi over 2 plus x is equal to g of pi minus x, and it is also negative g of negative x. First, g of pi over 2 plus x is cosine of quantity pi over 2 plus x minus sine of quantity pi over 2 plus x. So by expansion, this is cosine pi over 2. So again, you have to recall some formulas for cosine and sine. Cosine of quantity pi over 2 plus x is cosine pi over 2 cosine of x minus sine of pi over 2 sine of x, while sine of quantity pi over 2 plus x is sine of pi over 2 cosine x plus cosine of pi over 2 sine x. Sin cos plus cosine, this is cos cos minus sin sin. So equals g of pi over 2 plus x is cosine pi over 2 cosine of x minus sine of pi over 2 sine of x, then minus the quantity sine of pi over 2 cosine x plus cosine of pi over 2 sine x. Cosine of pi over 2 is 0, while sine of pi over 2 is 1. Then sine pi over 2 is 1, cosine of pi over 2 is 0, so that means this is 0. Then we have negative of cosine x here, and here we have negative of sine x. Therefore, g of pi over 2 plus x is negative sine x minus cosine x. And it is the same as negative cosine x minus sine x. Negative cosine x minus sine x. Next, we proceed to g of pi minus x. So g of pi minus x equals cosine of quantity pi minus x minus sine of quantity pi minus x. The expansion of this from cosine of alpha minus beta, this is cos cos plus sin sin, while sine of alpha minus beta is sin cos minus cosine. So for this, cosine of pi, cosine of x, then plus sine of pi, sine of x. Since cosine of pi minus x is like here, cosine of pi minus y, which is negative cosine y, so cosine of pi minus x is negative cosine x. That's why I just put cosine of pi minus x directly from the previous experience. While sine of quantity pi minus x, so minus sine pi cosine x minus cosine pi sine x. Remember, sine pi is 0, cosine pi is negative 1. So negative of negative 1 is positive 1 sine x. So this is positive sine x. Negative of sine x is negative sine x. Therefore, g of pi minus x is negative cosine x minus sine x, which is the same as above, which is negative sine x minus cosine x. Then finally, let's evaluate first g of negative x, which is cosine of negative x minus sine of negative x. So to have a short review on negative relations, let me have this figure. So counterclockwise direction is the positive measurement of angle, while clockwise is negative. Therefore, the angle negative x should be in clockwise direction as shown. It should be in the fourth quadrant. And y is negative, x is always positive in the fourth quadrant. So we have positive big X, then this is positive, this is r, and this is positive y. R is always positive. Of course, it is square root of big X square plus big Y square. Then the positive angle counterpart, the parts would be opposite positive y. R is always r, and that's the positive angle. So therefore, cosine of negative x is positive x adjacent positive x over big R. So cosine of negative x is just cosine of positive x, because cosine of positive x is still positive x over R. Cosine function therefore is even, while sine function is odd, because sine of negative x from the figure is negative capital Y over R. So negative of capital Y over R, and Y over R is sine of positive x. So cosine of negative x is just cosine of positive x, while sine of negative x is negative sine of positive x. So this is minus quantity negative sine of positive x. Expanding, that's cosine x plus sine x. G of negative x is cosine x plus sine x. Therefore, the negative of g of negative x is the negatives of this result. So negative of negative x is negative of quantity sine x plus cosine x, or negative sine x minus cosine x. So we have shown that all these three are equal. So g of pi over 2 plus x is equal to g of pi minus x equals negative g of negative x. So that's it for that part. Then lastly, if h of x is tangent x, find h of pi over 6. So h of pi over 6 is tangent of pi over 6. Tangent of 30 degrees is square root of 3 over 3. So for those who are experienced, can verify that square root of 3 over 3. Remember the proportions of 30 degree by 60 degree angle. So square root of 3 over 3. Then h of x minus pi over 2 is tangent of quantity x minus pi over 2. And although the expansion is tangent of alpha minus beta is tangent of alpha minus tangent beta all over 1 plus tangent alpha tangent beta, I'll transform this first into sine over cosine, because I already discussed sum and difference formulas for sine and cosines, so that you can also derive tangent of alpha minus beta. So I'll write this sine of quantity x minus pi over 2 over cosine of quantity x minus pi over 2. Sine of x minus pi over 2 is sine x cosine pi over 2 minus cosine x sine of pi over 2, while cosine of x minus pi over 2 is cosine x cosine pi over 2 plus sine x sine of pi over 2. So it is equal to sine of x cosine of pi over 2 minus cosine of x sine of pi over 2 all over cosine of x cosine of pi over 2 plus sine x sine of pi over 2. Cosine of pi over 2 is 0 from our experience here, or you should remember that. Sine of pi over 2 is 1. So the numerator simplifies to negative cosine x. Cosine pi over 2 is 0, so this whole first term in the denominator is 0. Sine pi over 2 is 1, so the denominator is sine x. So therefore, it is equal to negative cosine x over sine x. and it is negative cotangent x. H of x minus pi over 2 is negative cotangent x. Then h of 2x is like tangent of x plus x. So h of negative x first. So it is tangent of negative x. From the figure here, tangent of negative x is opposite negative y over positive x. So negative of quantity y over x, but the ratio y over x is tangent of positive x. Therefore, tangent of negative x, tangent function is also odd, just like sine. So this is negative tangent of x. So h of negative x is negative tangent of x. And finally, let us express h of 2x as a function of h of x. So h of 2x is tangent of 2x. So I'll suggest that if you cannot recall the formula, this is supposedly tangent of 2 tangent x, because the expansion is tangent of x plus x. So it is 2 tangent x over 1 minus tangent square x. So that's double angle formula for tangent 2x. But I suggest that you write this first as sine of x plus x, and the result is 2 sine x cosine x over cosine of x plus x, and the result in the denominator is cosine square x minus sine square x, because it is cosine of x plus x is cos minus sin. And the numerator is sine of x plus x, so sine x cosine x plus cosine x sine x, which can be combined into 2 sine x cosine x. And the denominator is cosine square x minus sine square x. Divide the numerator by cosine square x, the denominator by cosine square x, and the result is 2 tangent x over 1 minus tangent square x. So this is 2 tangent x over 1 minus tangent square x. So for those who can remember, then you write this right away. But for those who want to show that it is equal to this, I already suggested that you write tangent 2x as sine of 2x over cosine of 2x, and make sine 2x sine of quantity x plus x, and cosine 2x as cosine of x plus x. And you know the expansion here. From there, divide the numerator by cosine square x as well as the denominator, and it will result to this one. Therefore, h of 2x is 2h of x over 1 minus quantity h of x squared. So we have expressed h of 2x as a function of h of x. That's it for this video, and I hope that you enjoyed watching and you gain another experience back to trigonometry, especially the formulas.